which is peculiar to Singapore, is the President's custodial responsibilities. As we all know, the Constitution does not permit the President to initiate many measures, but on the custodial responsibilities to safeguard our reserves, the President acts independently from the government, and it is the responsibility of the President to ensure that our reserves are safeguarded, they are not used unnecessarily, they are not frittered away by possibly a spendthrift government. The President looks after our reserves, our hard-earned savings, accumulated from the past, to be used for the present, but also, not all of it, but some to be kept for future generations. So the head of state is a critical responsibility of the government. The custodial responsibilities are present. That is why we have an election and not appointment by Parliament. These are the two critical roles of the President.
Let me answer the question about checks and balances. There are specific requirements in the Constitution for the President to play that role in the area of the Internal Security Act, whether it is used properly or it is an abuse of power, corrupt practices. So there are specific roles to play the check and balances. And on the question about representing the country, what Dr. Tan says about important criteria, I agree. But over and above that, the President should represent the people of the country. Now, he must be in close contact with the people. He knows their aspirations, and that role I consider to be very important. And it will be good for other countries to know Singapore, not only from as a country, but as the people. So I want to emphasize that important role of the President representing the people of the country.
Well, I think the head of state function is very important. You must have someone who doesn't only smile, but also talk sense. And to be able to relate to visiting heads of state and to give an audience, to not just to people of substance, but also to children. You know, he's a chief Boy Scout as well. So these are various functions, and yeah, important, not just to the outside world, but also to your own people. Someone who will stretch his helping hand to those in need. And I see that internally is important. Internal role is as important as the external role that this head of state projects.
I agree with his points about the role of the President. I think what he has just said is it should be. We are fully aware of those roles, and I think that we should try to make sure that during the election, these roles are quietly understood by the electorate. Because as I said, I'm concerned that if this becomes an extension of the general elections, then I think it's not very good for this.
So on the subject of the role of the President, I think it's been a huge talking point over the past few weeks. As you know, what the President can or cannot do, as set out in the Constitution, and the Law Minister has come up quite explicitly with his view about where the law stands on it. So I want to ask each one of you, first of all, whether you agree or disagree with the Law Minister's position on this. I don't think I need to go into the details of his explanation. I think you must be quite familiar with it. So whether you agree or disagree with his interpretation of the law. Secondly, if you agree with his interpretation, because that's what the law says, do you believe that those are the correct duties of the President, or whether you would have preferred the President to have been given greater powers? If you disagree with his interpretation, can I ask which part of the interpretation do you disagree with, and if you are elected President, how would you reconcile your disagreement with the way you play out your role as president? Maybe for this question, let me start this way. Yeah. Go ahead, yeah.
Well, when you said the position of the law minister, I was just wondering which position you're referring to. At the IPS forum, he said something. The next day, on over the weekend, he said a different thing. And yesterday, I read in the papers about his position on the role of the president with regard to reserves. So it's a bit, there is a series of views that he has said. So, but we must view...
Hasn't he been consistent?
Yeah?
Hasn't he been consistent?
Well, he has a bit... Consistency meaning that you cannot do anything apart from what is specified. But he did say something that, you know, you have to give due respect to the president as well. That part, he was quite strict. On the Thursday IPS forum, the president will only be respected by the prime minister is of someone of certain caliber, of certain wisdom and all that. But later on, I think it's as a result of Dr. Chan Chek-bok's comment. He did say that, well, you know, he has said certain things, and yeah, I think there should be mutual respect. Isn't that your point, Dr. Chan? So it's a bit of a backtracking on the law minister's part.
Can we focus on that part of his interpretation where he says that according to the Constitution, apart from the custodial role of the president has to act in accordance with the advice of the cabinet? Can we focus on that for the time being?
Well, there are certain things, like on the death penalty, for example, his role is quite restricted to what the Constitution said, that the president has no choice but to sign on the death penalty, the execution order. That is very clear. And, well, if the Constitution is very specific, then the powers of the president are circumscribed. But that doesn't prevent the president from making his views heard on the death penalty. I would prefer, before I sign the execution order on anybody, to have a full debate on the issue of death penalty. And I think we have to argue it out. Since the death penalty was imposed, society has progressed. Have we become a less civilized society or a more civilized society? I would like to have the debate, and I want every MP, every minister who say yes to death penalty, that he is saying so with his conscience clear. And only when Parliament has fully cleared his conscience, then I will sign the execution order with conscience.
But which part of the Constitution allows the president such remit?
No, he can say things. You can't shut the president up. As Mr. Tan Kin Lian said, he is not a dumb president.
So can I press you on this point? So if you were elected president, and obviously I think your position on the death penalty is that you are against the death penalty. Supposing you were against the death penalty and you were elected president, would you speak out openly against the government's policy on the death penalty?
My position on the public debate is that I would engage the government first. And when I raise it in public, it will not be a surprise to the government that the Prime Minister doesn't wake up one morning and see this thing as a headline in the Straits Times.
So you warn him beforehand?
It will not be a surprise to the Prime Minister. He will be fully aware that what I will speak, and I will give him the full respect that he deserves.
You don't think you'll be acting unconstitutionally?
I don't think so. The law minister is not the ultimate interpreter of the Constitution. The law minister is an interested party.
And you don't think that will set up a path of confrontation between the president and the government?
It is not confrontation as such. Disagreement, we disagree. We agree as adults on the death penalty. Do I confront you? At the end of the day, if Parliament tells me to sign, I sign. Is that confrontation? Do I say, I disagree, I tear the sheet of paper in front of your eyes? No, I will sign if Parliament is convinced, has a clear conscience.
Can I go around? Yeah, can I have Doctor? Okay, all right.
On the part of the Constitution where it's clearly written, then I agree with the law minister. But on the part that is not clearly written, I hold a different interpretation. Now, the law minister says that there's a particular section where he says, in the execution of his duty in the Constitution, the President has to take advice of the Cabinet. Now, that part, I think that was his message, and he seems to imply that the President couldn't say anything at all except with the approval of Cabinet. Now, that part I disagree. Now, I said there's no requirement for the President to be dumb. That means I think the President should be able to say things on charity, on non-confrontational issues without having to get approval. All right. Now, when it comes to the part that is more difficult, let me then deal with this death penalty. Okay, the death penalty requires the President to take the advice of the Cabinet. Now, I would prefer the Constitution to be changed. If the Cabinet wants to decide, let the Cabinet take the responsibility to sign the death certificate, let the Prime Minister. Why do you have the Cabinet make a decision and ask the President to put his signature? Of course, this is something that requires the Constitution to be re-looked at. Now, even under the current Constitution, I'm not going to just sit down and wait for the Cabinet to tell me to sign. I would want to give my views to Cabinet so they take my views into account before they make the final decision. So the President can still play a role even under the current Constitution to give his views. Now, of course, in order to give my views, I do need to know what the facts are, and you need to know how was that processed. Yeah? Now, that would be difficult for the President to do alone, but today we are in the era of the internet, the social media. There's a wide range of opinion that is being fed, and it's possible to get a sense of what many people think, and that would reflect, I think, the views that the President can take, and the President can give that view to Cabinet before they make the final decision.
I think we have to work within the Constitution. Currently, if I'm the President now, and I see something which I don't quite agree